But yeah, so all right, we got the audio working, everything's up to par. Actually, I'm just gonna, I think, scrap those clips because different video. But what we're going to be reacting to, again, is I've done this in the past with data on racial inequality in the United States, and I did it on a much broader scale than he was doing it, but I found a lot of the same conclusive data that he did, except I found it, maybe like 5-6 years ago. Not making it a competition, but it's kind of how my brain operates, and I think that he does a really good job, and he says that data tells the story. So we're going to hit play. Unfortunately, we're going to have to watch an ad because I don't pay for YouTube, but I think he's well spoken, and that's why we're gonna react to this. And he's funny.
So I set up ride-alongs in Camden, Philadelphia.
Let's
data. It just didn't work.
Empirical analysis of racial differences in police use of force. Maybe there's been a more controversial paper since then. I would argue it's probably the most controversial of your career so far. Tell us about that study, and you've called the results the most surprising of your career. Why is that?
Can we change the language of controversy? I mean, do you mean interesting? People are always like, you're so controversial. I don't want to be, right? Like, I'm just showing you the data. The data are telling you a weird story. That's not my fault. I'd like some nice popular data. It just didn't work out that way. Look, I saw...
You guys know how I am. I pause and I talk a lot. This video will be way longer than the 20 minutes that it actually is. Maybe I'll select points too. But what he just said is really important. Because often when you're forced to go and get data like this, it is controversial data. And I like that he said it the way he said it, right? Because it's just interesting. And that's actually why I pursued it back in the past, as I was so intrigued by it that I couldn't believe what I was being told. So I wanted to see how inaccurate the data actually was, or see what it actually was, right? And I only ended up finding out that it was all inaccurate. What people believe, their common belief, was just bullshit. So I think that's important.
What was going on with Michael Brown and some of the early viral videos of police violence. I wanted to do something, but protesting is just not my jam. I'm not saying that people shouldn't protest, go for it, but it seemed hot outside, I just didn't want to do it. And so I thought, I want to do something. And the only thing I know how to do is I'm one of the world's biggest data nerds. So I said, this is going to be the easiest paper I ever write. I'm going to go get some data. I'm going to go show that the police are biased. Finally, people are going to like me. And my grandmother's going to go, you showed that the police don't like black people. Really? What are you doing up there? Right? Like this was I had it all laid out. And then I had dinner with a colleague of mine, and I was telling him about my plan. And he says, you know, Roland, when you work on schools and other stuff like that, you really just are in the schools. And so it's weird for me, strange that you would just download police data and not understand more about the police. He says, I wonder what the police are maximizing. A very econ kind of thing to ask. I wonder what the police are maximizing. And it dawned on me in that moment, I didn't know. Nor did I think I cared. So I said, okay, fine. I didn't give him credit in the moment, but I left and said, you know what I'm going to do?
I didn't give him credit in the moment. Another reason why I think I'm actually loving this guy right now, and again, I don't know who he is. I've never actually watched any videos with him. This is the first time that I found him. Another reason why I'm liking him is that right there. He said, I didn't give him credit in the moment. So this is a human being who's able to look at a situation, rethink, and this is where people are like, oh, you're crazy. Why do you reread your message? Why do you reread, or why do you pay attention to how you speak to people and remember what you say to them? It's so crazy. No, it's actually really important to reanalyze different situations over your life with people, especially confrontational and or disagreeable situations, to see if you were actually wrong. And if you're not doing that, it's irony because a lot of you call me narcissistic, but I would define that as narcissism. You're not willing to question yourself. So, him validating this man later, not in the moment, totally human and respectable.
I'm going to go figure out what police maximize. So I set up ride-alongs in Camden, Philadelphia, Houston, some places.
I'm going to quickly hit play, but I just want to point out the places he's listing are some of the most criminally active places too. So like he really went deep for this to get what he got, and the final result I haven't gotten to it. A hair. I got to about here before I said I'm going to record this because I like it so much.
This is in Massachusetts to ride along with the police. Now, back to 1991. I don't like the police very much. I don't.
What had been your experience with the police?
I had been roughed up by the police. I've had guns pulled on me, mind you.
Again, I'm going to stop a million times. He's going to say something here in a second where he says, mind you, context, that he was actually disregarding what they were telling him to do, being disobedient in a time of crisis. So he's doing something wrong and then also not listening to their authority at that time. And I want to point out that he says he got roughed up, so he was biased. And actually, I started off life very biased towards the police because my family comes from a relatively criminal background, or at least half of them do. Closer to me, at least closer to my side of the family, especially. Close relatives without saying too much. So I had a bias because I watched cops constantly beat up my family. And then my first interactions with police were when I was like 12, 13, and we were shoplifting, we were doing stupid shit as kids. Then, vandalism, just dumb shit as kids. And, I was roughed up by police even as a kid, had knees put on my head. So, and clearly I'm, I look like the guy from Twilight, right? So like I illuminate in the light. So I can speak to this.
They pulled me over, and I decided it would be a good idea to get out of the car and walk away. The details are important, probably. But in any event, I didn't like their customer service. And so I just didn't like police. They came, they took half my family away. Granted, they were selling a lot of drugs, but again, not the greatest customer service.
I fucking love this guy because that's the truth. So like as I became older and I realized that I had to cut that because I said a name, and I don't want to give you context or references to any actual people, right? So, but again, as I became older and I realized that those people in my family were the bad guys, that they were breaking the law, they were committing crimes, doing drugs, robberies, abuse, all these other different concepts, I started to come down off that pedestal that I was on, thinking that the police were out to get me and out to get my family. And I quickly realized, no, my family is breaking the set in stone laws that we all have to abide by, and they're being punished for it. It's crazy how you come to that conclusion as an adult, but you can't as a kid. And I think that's the dangerous part about our society is that I'm not going to reference any data here, but I am going to say that if you look up the data yourself, you'll see that statistically, black males commit a lot more crimes than white males. And it could be argued that it's because they are already seeing the police as the bad guys. So they're also seeing the law as wrong. And that disregard for the law, because they disregard police, is an issue, because then they're committing crimes and breaking crimes and pretending or convinced in their head that they're being targeted. And that conviction of feeling like you're being targeted will actually more likely than not make you outlash more, right? So when I was younger, because I felt like I was being targeted because of who my family was, I would often use that as verbal abuse back towards the police and say that you're targeting me, you're only here for this, you're not really doing your job, you have nothing better to do, etc. Right? So the mentality thing, and it sucks because in kids specifically, so I don't want to just say black families, but it is, like I said, statistically it is, black men commit more crimes, right, and more murder and all that stuff, but I don't want to say it like that. I want to say in a human sense, an unbiased human sense, that both families, all colors, all skins, kids are extremely influenced or easily suggestible, and when you suggest to them that the system is actually rigged against them, it should make you think about how they're going to then try to rebel against said system and or accept it. There's either the cynicism aspect where they now believe they can't not accomplish anything, and then there's the worst side of it, which is the rebellion aspect, where they believe they need to rebel against this oppressive system that's not really targeting them, it's targeting the crime, right?
They came, they took half my family away. Granted, they were selling a lot of drugs, but again, not the greatest customer service. So I was biased against the police. I'm not, that's obvious. I went, and I don't think I've received a better education since my grandmother taught me to read.
Spend a lazy morning.
It's a hard job. And I know that sounds obvious sitting on a stage. It's a really hard job. I am a terrible police officer. After 4 hours, everyone looked like a criminal to me. I don't know if I was hangry. I don't know what it was, but I'm telling you, I am serious. They were like, you could never be a cop. Because I was like, hey, let's pull over. That kid's got a basketball. I don't like it. I participated in these weapons training thing, not real weapons, relax, but like these weapons trainings where there's simulations, and some guy, like I'm in the building, the guy walks out, he's got a baby, I shoot the guy right in the head, and they're like, what was about the baby? I said, sorry, I didn't see the baby. You know, I was a bad police officer. But what I really did, I'm serious, I realized the job is really hard. It was the end of a 12-hour shift in Camden.
I want to point out, one, I think why I'm attracted to this is because he's funny. Like, he's hilarious. Like, he gets it. Like, he gets it on a human level, so he can make humor out of it. But also, 12-hour shift. Like, pay attention to the details that he's mentioning, because he said earlier that the details matter, and the details matter in all things that we talk about. So if you're trying to understand how a cop lives and how a cop has to go through his life, he just talked about a nurse's type shift, a 12-hour shift. Sometimes 16, sometimes they work doubles. But a 12-hour shift and potentially constant combat. Some of these regions that he listed are constant conflict. So their high alert fight or flight is constantly engaged as well. And I get it. You're like, oh, they should be trained better. But you're just coming off self-righteous. Anybody who says anything along the lines that hasn't done the job themselves, that they can do better, one, vague way of saying it, right? Broad way of saying it. Everybody can do better, right? But the reality is I think sometimes people are putting them on a pedestal that they don't deserve to be, similar to the president. Like, oh, this one man's going to fix all the problems in the world. Yeah, not really. No, he's a human too. It's more likely than not he'll fail, actually, because that's what we do. We're good at that. But just pointing that out, that's all. I think that's important here.
And we get a call for a potential overdose in a row house. It's an abandoned building. We bust in. A person dies within 6 feet of me. And
I love this guy. Like, now I don't even know where he's going. I haven't gotten this far in the video, but I know he's about to go down the emotional baggage. And similar to nursing, actually, in the ER room, the ER room has some of the most emotional baggage because of what they deal with in trauma, right? They come in with a person with their arm chopped off or something. Or a kid, worse. A kid comes in with their arm chopped off. And you have to try to console that child and heal them. And what he's about to say is, he watched somebody, it's different. You're seeing this stuff on the daily, so it's not even a combative crime right now. It's an overdose. It's a victimless crime in a sense, and it's not victimless, but you get what I'm saying.
It shook me up a little bit. And so I looked at the guys I was with and I said, yo, how about beers on me? And they said, what do you mean beers are on you? I said, I don't know how to say it. Do you want me to speak in Greek? I mean, I don't know. It's beers are on me. We should leave here. Let the paramedics take over. We should go. And they said, we got to go back to work. And I said, but we just saw somebody die. And the police chief overheard me, and he was incredulous. He says, Roland, if I gave everybody a break every time someone died, no one would cover the shifts. And I was like, wow. It is a hard job. And so through these experiences, long story short, I collected a lot of data, and those experiences helped me understand what types of data to collect. We collected millions of observations on everyday use of force that wasn't lethal. We collected thousands of observations on lethal force. And the key question, I alluded to it earlier in a bit of a joke, but the key question is not just this arbitrary, silly snapshots that some journalists, not named Barry, do a lot, which is black people are 13% of the population and they are 50% of the police shootings. I'm sorry about that, but I don't know what that has to do with the question. Right? And it was in this moment in 2016 that I realized people lose their minds when they don't like the result. Right? And so what my paper showed, you'll see tomorrow, like some of you, was that, yes, we saw some bias in the low-level uses of force, every day pushing up against cars and things like that. People seem to like that result. But we didn't find any racial bias in police shootings. Now, that was really surprising to me because I expected to see it. The little-known fact is I had 8 full-time RAs that it took.
I do want to point one thing out right now, right? So, and again, I've done this data myself. So he's missing a little bit of context here, and I'm not trying to question his ability to do something, because he did a great job here. He is right. There is no bias in shootings or really violent crimes. As a matter of fact, actually, the more violent the crime or more escalated the situation, the more protocol the police usually actually follow. I want to say that again. The more extreme, the more escalated the situation, bank robberies, armed robberies, etc., domestic abuse even, the more of the protocol they actually follow, because it's no longer just instincts. They need to make sure that they're keeping everybody safe. So there's even less bias at the top. And what he's talking about in the day-to-day crimes, I don't want to say that he's wrong because it's really unfair, but he is missing context. It's a numbers game. If 50, I don't want to say 50%, but if a large population of a specific race is committing more crimes, then there will be more law of averages in instances of police-civilian interaction. And if there's more of those police-civilian interactions, then yes, the data is going to say that there's going to be more bias, pushing, shoving in those situations. But again, I'm telling you, as a white man, all white, who came from an all-white family that I know of at least, the criminals were all white at least, you know what I mean? I watched them get pushed, shoved, and violently treated. As a matter of fact, I grew up in some pretty poor neighborhoods. I've actually seen my family be roughed up and treated worse than any minorities I grew up with. And I mean, I can stand by that, actually. And again, that's anecdotal, obviously, right? But there's actually data to back this up as well. And that's why I'm saying his data is correct, that technically at the lower level, it looks like there is a bias. But it's not true. It's a numbers game. And if you do it based on ratio, right? So if we take the whole white population of 150 million, or we can't actually do that. You have to do the population based on the amount of people committing crimes. So essentially what I'm saying is if we have 10 white people committing crimes and 10 black people committing crimes, is that the number will actually look the same. The bias or the shoving and the pushing will look the exact same. But because we actually have 20 black people committing crimes and 10 white people committing crimes, which is more or less really inaccurate, actually, it's way worse than that, the scale, right? But because that's actually what you're seeing, the numbers are a little bit skewed. So it looks like there's a racial bias, but the reality of it is if you do a 1 out of 10, there's not.
To do this over nearly a year. When I found the surprising result, I hired 8 fresh ones and redid it to make sure.
So he didn't even trust his first batch of data, to the point where he didn't trust the people to not have bias that he actually hired to do this. So he actually went out and hired an entirely other team, or maybe not hired, maybe just requested. I don't know how that went down, but got an entire other team to then re-procure the exact same data and got the same result.
They came up with the same exact answer, and I thought it was robust. And I went to go give it, and my God, all hell broke loose.
Tell us about that. What was the
Oh, I mean, well, your former paper published a thing, published a report about it, and it was a 104-page dense academic economics paper with a 150-page appendix, okay?
Mao's
4 minutes when I got my first email. It was posted for 4 minutes when I got my first email. This is full of shit. Doesn't make any sense. And I wrote back, how'd you read it that fast? That's amazing. You are a genius.
I love this guy. Like, he's actually dumb funny. And I get the context now. So he said he wrote a paper that was 140 pages or something like that. I'm butchering this, but 140 plus another 150. I forget the word he used. I actually don't know what that is. I would have to look it up, to be completely honest with you. But I'm assuming it's like an afterthought. So here's what I'm trying to get across. Here's all the other shit that came with it, right? Or that I discovered along the way. I don't know if that's the case, right? I'd have to actually look it up, rewind it, and look up that word. But I don't need to, because I get the point that he's getting at here. And this is where a lot of people struggle on my gaming stuff. Is like they can't get over inaccuracy sometimes. But the point he's making here is that the paper was extraordinarily long, and 250 pages to be read in 4 minutes means you have like a fucking... your reading level's off the chart, right? That's why he's saying it. Your reading level will be off the chart. So I think where he's going to go with this next is that this person clearly had a bias from the jump. They jumped to the result, only saw the result, and immediately fired at him.
People lost their minds. I mean, it was like colleagues of mine were going, well, I don't believe these results. He's using regressions. I'm like, well, what the hell else we been using? I mean, we've been using them for ever. That's what you use. And I
Okay, I need to do this because I think it's important, and you guys know this. That I lecture this pretty hard, actually, on my channel. That if you hear a word that you don't know, that you should take the time to look it up. And I've heard 2 words now that I don't fucking know, so I think it's important that we look them up. Yeah, actually, so this is. I agree with him. I think all data analysis is based on this. So he's hilarious. He's hilarious, and actually, whoever said that to him is fucking stupid. And it's sad because he said colleagues, which means these people are college educated. It really goes.
And I had colleagues take me to the side and say, don't publish this. You'll ruin your career. I said, what are you talking about? I said, what's wrong with it? Do you believe the first part? Yes. Do you believe the second part? Well, the issue is they just don't fit together. We like the first one, but you should publish the second one another time. I said, let me ask this. If the second part about the police shootings, this is a literal conversation. I said to them, if the second part showed bias, do you think I should publish it then? And they say, yeah, then it would make sense. And I said, I guarantee you I'll publish it.
This isn't also a problem with the world. And look, he's telling you at the highest end, his colleagues, their college professors, this is the problem with the world. This is actually the problem with the world. Data is data regardless. There's no evil, there's no good, there's no bias. It's data. He's choosing to publish, and this is why it's so funny. His colleagues are fucking stupid, actually. They didn't like the second part of his data because it contradicts with the first part of his data, but often that's actually what you'll find, is whenever you do conclusive investigations into things and you look at all the data, is that there is inconsistencies most of the time, that things don't always kind of match up and pair up, especially when you're talking about extreme policing, shootings, versus misdemeanors and stuff. Theft, petty theft, right? So why I really love this, like why I actually really love this, and that's another thing to go into this too, is that a real shooter or real crime or real problem, the criminal is actually taking it more serious because they know the severity of the crime they're committing. So when the cops do stop them, they know they're in danger. So they usually listen a little bit more sometimes. Whereas petty crime, you'll often see, especially with now body cam footage, petty crimes, the criminals are a little bit more cocky with the police because they feel like they haven't committed a crime severe enough to validate forceful interaction with the police. But what validates the forceful interaction with the police is that thought process, is that you think for some reason you're different than a real criminal or a more advanced criminal or some more severe criminal. So I just think it's funny. I love this. But yeah, back to his colleagues being fucking stupid. That's the problem with the world nowadays, is that we want one-sided data to conclusively prove a point, but that is the problem, is that these studies are so fucking biased nowadays. Like I had a metabolism argument a few months ago, and it was funny because they basically said your metabolism doesn't change between these ages, but it did change between those ages. They just said it's not because of age, it's because the aging of the organs and the deterioration of the organs is what's changing your metabolism as you age. That is the most fucking skin crawly, dumb, douchebaggish way to try to make your point true. And it's just inaccurate. It's blatantly inaccurate. You're biasing the data and the statistics to make your point more valid, and that's not how that works. And in that study, they actually had to drug and dose the older participants in it because their organs don't function the same as a younger person's organs. Shocker. So age had a by-effect, a sub-effect on the rest of the body, which then affected the metabolism, i.e., being affected by age. So it's interesting how people will tear things apart and not include both sides of an argument because it favors their argument. But actually, what you'll learn is usually your argument's actually better supported if you show both sides. And that's why I'm loving this right now, is because he gets that. He gets that for this data to actually make sense, even though it looks like it's contradicting, you need to post all of the actual data, even if it makes your point look somewhat wrong, because it tells a story. It shows you an up and a down between the relationships. I love this guy. Like, this guy is so intelligent, and his colleagues are so fucking dumb. And it makes me feel bad because, like, I'm poor, right? I have a crappy lifestyle and didn't go to school and didn't get a formal education, but there's college professors apparently in this world who don't even understand basic data. That's an issue. Or worse, are willing to bias the data. Bias the data, which is worse because it's intellectually dishonest. So I just, I want to point that out.
We'll see what happens. So it was. I lived under police protection for about 30 or 40 days. I had a 7-day-old daughter at the time. I remember going and shopping for, because, you know, when you have a newborn, you think you have enough diapers, you don't. So I was going to the grocery store to get diapers with an armed guard. It was crazy. It was really, truly crazy.
You know, and one more thing. I wasn't going to upload the video that I originally uploaded or recorded at the beginning of this, but now I actually am because of what he just said. He's telling now that he published this data and then got death threats, essentially, that he had to have protective custody with his family because he published data. The published data, this isn't even him making it up. It's not him going out of his way to hurt anybody. It's him looking at what was provided by the government censuses and everything else, analyzing it, and stating his opinion on it. And then he's got a 7-day-old daughter. Listen to what he's saying. It sounds similar to actually what I said at the beginning of this. That's why it's actually hilarious. That it's crazy. We live in a world where people will go out of their way if you disagree with them to actually harm you. And we're seeing that with the Trump election right now, too. Regardless of the douchebag that people think he is or how bad they think he is for the country, that doesn't give anybody in the country the right to shoot him over it, right? That's the reality of this. So I love this man on a level that I can't even fucking express right now because I'm white, he's black, we're completely different. He's comedic, I'm not. He's a data analyst, he's educated, I'm not, right? There's so many differences between us, but it's weird because his commonality with me is that he gets the fucking world. He understands that it's not black and white, it's very gray sometimes, and you need to look into the gray, the context, the details, to actually see what's happening and going on in your country. This guy's an absolute fucking genius, but I'm very sad for him to know that he had to have protective custody with a 7-day-old child because he published data that went against the norm. That's a fucking problem. That's literally the problem in the world right now, is that if I tell you you're wrong and prove it to you, you can't just accept it. That your little fucking brain can't just own it, and you need to somehow do something to that person to feel righteous. And it's even worse when you're not the person being proven wrong. I experienced that in the video game, right? Like I said, getting sent a rat file. Being sent that Trojan because I proved them wrong on data is insanity. You don't even know me. That's even worse. So when you're targeting somebody that you actually have no interaction with, and they've genuinely not made it personal with you, but then you're making it personal back, yeah, you have psychological issues. It's interesting. A lot of people always call all these other people for psychological issues, like me for being outspoken, but I would argue that you're the one with the psychological issues because you feel the need to attack somebody over their thoughts. And it's fucking sad. It's a sad fucking world when you think about it like that.
Yeah, it was a really phenomenal experience.
There are a lot of people, many people.
Hey everyone, so the team decided to do a fun competition.
You know, I should have actually responded or reacted to that commercial that popped up with Kamala Harris on it. Have you noticed that we haven't seen any campaign ads from Trump begging for fucking money and pandering? Like, she's still pandering. Like, it's insane how hard this chick panders. Like, it's full-on pandering at this point. Not just pandering to political sides and race, nationality, and all that other crap. But that as well. Like, seeing these commercials just constantly pop up where she's asking people to donate money towards their cause. Like, are you just gonna... You're gonna suck the American people dry any way you can, right? Okay, got it.
And this has been a realization for me over the past few years of my own life, who faced with that exact decision point would make the opposite choice. I think the majority of people actually would make the opposite choice.
Whoa, gotta pause just to shout out to her. Like I said, you guys know if you watch, I pause a lot. Whoa, what a self-realization. What an honest opinion of herself. Like, what an insightful human being she actually is. And then to flat out admit that if faced with the same challenge, and she had been faced with the same challenge, that she would not have published it. She knows that she wouldn't have gone against the grain because she wouldn't have wanted to deal with, I want to call it the social suicide, essentially. That's really what it is, right? You're basically politically correcting yourself, censoring yourself to the world, right? Because everyone's going to cut you off and judge you and scrutinize you, etc. So much respect for her identifying in herself that she is part of the problem. I hate to say it like that, but she is part of the problem. Unwilling to speak her opinion, speak her mind, say what needs to be said, the truth, regardless of the effect it's going to have on our life. And you guys know previously on the channel, I've talked about that. How most people, if it's you or me, won't do the right thing. Most people won't sacrifice their own benefit or their own well-being if it's the right thing to do for another person. They'll do the wrong thing instead. So huge shout out to her for that.
They would think, I'm going to preserve my career, my professional status, my prestige. You were you were a golden boy at that point. I'm going to preserve my popularity, my ability to get along with my colleagues, someone nice to sit next to me in the cafeteria. Like, every incentive, to use an economics term, would be pushing you to make that choice. What is it inside of you
I know what he's gonna say. It's the fight. It's the need for truth. The people who need the truth for the world, who need justice, will never do that, and that's what he's probably going to go down the route of. But I wanted to say that, you know, in Lost Ark specifically, that's basically what I represented, and that's why I got a hard time for it, was because I fought the establishment. I was proving everybody wrong. I was against the grain. I was telling the majority that you guys aren't seeing this correctly, and you guys hated me for it. And it's funny because it's the same story every time. It's the same story every time. It's exactly what Trump's going through right now too. He's trying to destroy the current establishment. JFK did it. Abe Lincoln did it, and y'all are hating him for it. It's just interesting. It's interesting all the way back to Jesus. It's interesting how we target the people who speak out against the problems in our societies. And that's what this man's doing. And it's sad that he actually went from having a lucrative career and a great career, and I'm sure he still has a really great life, but to losing a good portion of his friends, family, and fans because he made an analysis based on subjective or objective data. That's worse, is that he made an analysis on something that he had nothing to do with. And that's crazy, right?
What can everyone here learn about what allowed you to make the opposite choice? To make the choice that would force you to suffer all of the consequences you would come to suffer, some a direct result and some adjacent to it.
I don't covet what they covet. And I tell my undergraduates every year in the final lecture of my undergraduate classes, each one of them, the key to Harvard is
Wait a minute. He just said Harvard, so he's not even a normal college professor at some state school or something, not to diminish those professors. He's a Harvard professor, which means that his colleagues are other Harvard professors. Do you know how terrifying that is, to know that they can't do basic data analysis and don't understand I understand regressions faster than they did, apparently, and they've been studying it their whole life. That's terrifying. That's terrifying, because he's not just talking about any school in the United States. He's talking about one of the more prestigious schools, which also implies trust. You go to this school because you trust their knowledge, you trust their ability to do something. So a good portion of people who don't have critical thinking skills are just going to accept whatever truth they give them as truth. That's terrifying. That's terrifying, because he just told us that there's colleagues of his that told him not to publish the paper because it was speaking too much of the truth. That's insanity. That's insanity, and that should really make you question certain people in positions of power or position of education in this case, because that's insanity. That's insanity. These are some of the smarter people in our country, and that's bias. It's blatant bias. So, wow.
great education without letting this place change you. It's really important. It can be corrupting. So not every incentive was pushing in that direction, because every day I have to look myself in the mirror and say, what are you here for? What did you leave behind?
Okay, so I said honesty, justice, everything that I had said. Obviously, I worded it different than him, but what he just said, you have to look yourself in the mirror. That's exactly what I'm talking about. It's integrity. It's integrity. A person who wants to do the right thing can't do the wrong thing. It's how it works. If you have a real strong level of integrity, it doesn't matter who's watching, it doesn't matter who's looking, you do what you're supposed to do because it's the right thing to do. Take where I live, actually, for the most part, and I'm always complaining about this. There's people here who just don't give a fuck how they park. They will pull in crookedly, they'll park sideways, they don't care that nobody else can park next to them, they don't give a fuck if they pinned your door shut and they can't get out, you can't get into your car. They don't care. Not everybody, I don't want to say everybody, but that's what this speaks to. It's a personal integrity. Even though nobody's watching me, I will back my car out 10 times if I have to make sure it's straight and other people have room to get into the vehicle. Because it's about integrity. It's about what you're doing when nobody's watching. This man is an absolute fucking G. Like, by every single word and every single definition, he's a G. He's a GOAT because he has integrity. I love this guy. This guy's actually a Chad. Like an actual giga-fucking Chad, so.
I did not grow up wanting to go to Harvard. I didn't. I really didn't. I wanted to do something. And I, like many others in here, I want to acknowledge that, have suffered a lot of losses in my life. My grandmother's no longer here.
Wait, did you see what he did too? This guy is so fucking cool, man. He's so admirable. I'm sorry, I gotta keep pausing it. But he said, I've suffered many losses in my life, as many of you here have too, right? And I'm paraphrasing. I fucked that up. I butchered the quote. But the point is that ideology. he's telling you the victim card, right? Me too. He's saying, I have experienced troubles and difficulties in my life, but not saying it like he's the only one. He quickly identifies, like every other human being, I have struggled too. This guy is so fucking smart, but it's not just about intelligence here. It's the level of empathy. It's that level of humanity that he's applying to it, the level of lack of bias. That's what's making this such a good conversation for him and making me so admirable or admired towards him or swoon over him, however we need to word it. But why I'm admiring him so much is because he's so fucking real. He's real. He's a real human being. There's no political agenda here. There's no bullshit imagery here. He doesn't give a fuck how it sounds or how it looks. As a matter of fact, though, he does a great job of making it sound fantastic. This guy, I'm going to like it. I'm going to find him rolling fire. I'm going to make sure that I put time into him going forward because he's super intelligent. I'd love to read his paper now, actually. Although I already did a lot of that data on my own, so I know the numbers. But still, to see what his take on it would be phenomenal.
My father is dead. I don't know where my mother is. They're all gone. Every single cousin is gone. My favorite cousin, the day he got released out of prison after 25 years, someone walked up behind him and shot him directly in the head. So I have to make this journey worth it. I am here because I want to solve problems.
I know I'm pausing a lot, but you guys in my Discord, you guys often say, oh, you're so intrinsic, or whatever the word is you have such an intrinsic belief, or you believe in yourself so much. I forget what the word was, or not eccentric, whatever the fuck the word was you guys use. I forget what it is. But it means that I have really, really deep self-belief. And really, I always hated that because it's not just deep self-belief. It's that I believe I'm here to do something better than what I'm currently doing, or that's at least what we should all try to strive to do, which is do something of value to the world. And there's Greek words that actually talk about that. There's Greek quotes and stuff. I'm not going to get into that whole stoic crap. I'm just going to say that that's what he's saying right here, is that he wants to make his life count. He wants to make it matter. And to biasly not put up that paper would be taking away from his purpose on this planet, essentially. And I think that's where he's going with this. This guy is just so fucking deep. Like, it sucks because a good portion of my viewer base, and I'm not trying to be rude to you guys, but a good portion of my viewer base, I don't think are deep enough to actually get this man. I don't, and that's my problem in the world, right? Why am I so lonely? People are like, oh, why are you so sad? Why are you so lonely all the time? Well, because I have these thoughts that nobody else seems to understand or be able to relate to that makes you pretty fucking lonely. This guy gets it. This guy is, I don't know how old he is, but he is so smart and so wise and so many years ahead of where I think most people are at his age. 30s and 40s. The stuff he's talking about take people until their 60s, 70s, and 80s. Some people never figure it out, and some people only figure it out on their deathbed what he's talking about. So that, wow, what a great human being. You know what I'm saying? Like, this guy is spot on. He's phenomenal. He's well-spoken, and he caters to both sides of the data. Just, wow, right? Can we like admire him together for a minute? Like, what a great dude.
Problems. I am here because I have seen so much talent in these neighborhoods, and I know they know bullshit when they see it. So I'm not going to lie to them. I wouldn't be able to show my face in these places if I told lies to them, like, oh, I heard this result from you. The thing about it is, if you do a result, what has happened with the actual police departments is that because they actually believe the results and they're willing to reform on the lower level uses of force because someone told the truth about the others. And
Ooh, dude, he's hitting on psychological shit and he's a data analyst. Like, this guy's amazing. What he just said is so fucking true. He said that because he was honest about the data, that the police were actually more willing to listen to it and reform their current ways in the lower petty crimes to try to be less biased, essentially. So let's just assume that what he said in the data was true. We know from my data that it's not fully true, but I'm going to trust his data more here, and we're going to go with it for the point, right? The reality of it here is that he's telling you basically that if you full on call somebody a villain or the bad guy or tell them they're wrong without meeting some sort of middle ground, they're going to reject it more likely than not. Cognitive dissonance is going to kick in. If you're telling all police that they're criminals, they're horrible, and they just shoot to shoot, and there's a bias, and they don't really believe that and the slightest about themselves, or at least to the extreme that you're trying to sell it, they're just going to completely reject it. And that's what he's getting at here, is by publishing a honest data, an honest paper, and showing both sides of it, he was able to make headway with the police and get them to see where they were falling short. This man is doing more good for our world than I think 90% of you at the moment. I'm genuinely mean that. Like, even me, like, he's doing way more for the world than I could ever even imagine doing, just by being himself. That's what's crazy. This guy is so fucking awesome. Like, so awesome. Like, so friggin' amazing. It's not even funny.
You know, it's the importance of being thought of someone, of being an actual truth teller is so, so very important. Maybe not in the moment. But I didn't go to Harvard to have Chardonnay at 10:30 in the morning. I just don't want it. It's not my thing. And it's okay if it's someone else's thing. It's just not my thing. I went there to make a difference. Truly, I know that sounds naive to many of you. But as I tell my students, remember when you came to Harvard, you had lofty dreams of changing the world. It wasn't downside risk.
You're streaming?
I really wish he would have said what happened. You had these lofty dreams when you came here of changing the world. What happened? And wow, so well said. Also, orange might be my color. It kind of looks nice. I'm not gonna lie. Maybe look at an orange backlight. But yeah, I mean, listen to him. I'm gonna hit play because this guy's doing it on his own. He doesn't need me to speak for him. It's just really admiration. That's all it says.
It wasn't downside risk protection. Right? Everybody I know who I've seen walk through those ivy doors rocks the boat until they get in the boat, and then they say, "Steady now." I rocked the boat until I got in the boat, and I said, "Let's see how fast we can go." And I've fallen out the boat, got run over by the boat. It is what it is. But you got to be for something, right? And so I
don't need to say it to a lot of you, but he just said it. You gotta be for something. Otherwise, your life is meaningless. That's why I don't like people who don't believe in God, because not that I don't like you, like I hate you, but it just doesn't make any sense. Then what are you living for? You're living for humanity? The 90% of the people that you'll never meet, see, or care about? It's just, this guy is fucking great. Like, great, dude. He's great. And it sucks because it's going to go over a lot of people's heads, like how great this man actually is. And the target points, the emotional, psychological, and societal target points that he's hitting. Wow, dude. What a guy. And look, that was 30 seconds. In 30 seconds of speaking, this man has more wisdom than half of you. I mean that, actually. In 30 seconds, he's portraying such a broad, complex equation of knowledge in his fucking head. It's insanity, and he's articulating it for you. That's even better.
I mean, I actually don't understand those other people. I don't know what they're maximizing.
This is the man that should have been the president at Harvard, not that whack job woke lady that they ended up with. If the media covered the shootings of white people...
Okay, you guys know how I am. I'm not going to respond. This is somebody else's video, obviously, right? So I'm not trying to say I don't care what this guy has to say, but it's not what attracted me to it. What attracted me to it was I wanted to see the anti-white double standards, obviously, right? And then started hearing him speak, and I needed to hear more of him speak, right? So we'll probably go find videos now of him speaking. Right? I refuse to lie. It's 1 hour long. But we're going to cut this here because I don't want it to obviously be too long. I couldn't help it when I heard him speak. He's extremely intelligent. Extremely intelligent. You know, maybe we'll take a second. We'll go through a couple of the comments, right? Has courage and integrity. His name should be in the title rather than Black Professor. Amen, actually. Yeah, actually. I mean, this dude's kind of right, though, dude. Actually. Yeah, well said, sir. 100%. Totally agree. Yeah, there shouldn't be anybody in here that doesn't agree. Like, that's fucking amazing. There are comments being deleted in this comment thread where non-black people were saying the same thing. They were treated very poorly. The race of the one bringing knowledge to the masses is the most important thing here. Oof. Yeah, you know what? I lied. We're not going to read the comments because I forgot how stupid people are in the comments. Oof. Yeah, and this is what I mean. This is the problem. So, of all that greatness that man just offered, right? All the pseudo intellectual psychological concepts that we talked about, and I'm using words that don't necessarily fit here, whatever, I don't care. But the point is, all the greatness that he just had to offer, and look what these people are talking about. That first comment was pretty good, but none of them got that. None of them got that. None of these people got that. And that's scary. That's scary. It really is scary that not one single person in this comment section genuinely understood straight up the way he talks, walks past his skin tone, and puts him above anybody as a compassionate intellectual who knows what he's talking about. I lied. This guy actually had a really great comment. Didn't target anything in detail, but he really does get it, actually. This guy's a douchebag. This is what I mean. I don't want to see anything like that. Like, anybody saying shit like that, I don't care. It's simple. The man has something called integrity, professional and personal. It's something that is very lacking in today's entitled society. And I wish he would have said the education system, because, again, this guy's telling you he's a Harvard professor and that his colleagues were telling him not to publish the data. That's a problem. That is a problem. That means that there's a large amount of at least Harvard professors who, if they find data that makes society uncomfortable, they're not going to post it. That's a fucking problem. It's intellectual dishonesty. Therefore, I think you should be barred. You should be disbarred. You should not be a teacher. I don't care about your fucking tenure. If you're willing to hide data that makes your point look wrong, you're dishonest. You're intellectually dishonest. So it's fucking insane, actually, when he said that part. He's not a black professor, but a professor. On top of that, the man was oppressive integrity and professionalism. Yeah, great. People cry crime is too high. Government sends police to reduce crime. Inevitably, a police officer has to use lethal force. See, this is what I mean. So a lot of these people really are just dumb. And I'm not being mean. And I'm not saying they're dumb because they're stupid overall. Like, they can't do 1 + 1, or they can't do basic fucking life things, right? I'm saying they're dumb in the sense that all of those life lessons that he just taught in a single video, right, in 10 minutes, not even 20 minutes, but all of the life lessons that he's teaching through talking about this data, that's what's crazy. His talking point's the data the entire time, but he's actually, by explaining it, giving you ridiculous amounts of life lessons along the way. The fact that nobody picked up on it is concerning. And I obviously there's thousands of comments here, so I can't say that 110%. But it does say a lot. It does actually say a lot. Oof, that's hilarious. This is actually pretty good. It does add to the point overall, but and then they try to discredit him to keep their bullshit narrative alive. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, see what I mean, though? Ooh, wow, well said. That's actually perfect for the Harvard thing, and then we'll stop right here, actually. But that's perfect for the Harvard concept. So I'm sitting here calling out the teachers and saying how it's fucked up that they're not telling the whole honest truth. This guy kind of nails it. So, okay, we found an intellect. We found somebody who's actually extremely intelligent. He said, it's a quote, "It is usually futile to try to talk facts and analysis to people who are enjoying a sense of moral superiority in their ignorance." Thomas Sowell. And I don't know if he's saying that to the professor, trying to claim that he's using moral superiority. I actually think that he's referencing the college professors, and granted, this is referencing everybody, obviously, right? Because everybody who's any form of moral superiority, or they'll be in their ignorance, right? They're happy because they feel better than you, and that's actually really common, especially with evil people. That's what's crazy. The people who do the worst shit have the most moral superiority. They feel like they're better. They deserve it, right? But very few people know they're evil and are evil because they know they're evil. It's just not a thing most of the time. Or you're a psychopath. You're not a mentally ill person. You're just a straight up psycho. So, him saying this, it's just interesting because it actually, I think, is targeting the college professors because they're not stupid. They're being ignorant. They enjoy feeling like they're smarter than, or better than, or morally sound by saying that the police do have a bias, right? They'd rather favor that wrong narrative and stay in their ignorance. And I think it's huge. I think it's actually huge, especially because one of the professors he said that he talked to said that, oh, well, you're just using regressions. And that's a perfect example of this. Facts and analysis, regressions. It's a mathematical proven ability to find a variable, or to at least guess at a variable that we don't actually have all the data for, which is basically all data analysis, right? This is so good. This is so good. Like, I mean, this guy really nails it. He really nails it. Like, that was really good. And yeah, we're gonna end there. We're gonna end there because that was a great quote. And it's even better. You know how you know when somebody's really intelligent too is that it's not even their words. He pulled a quote. He pulled a quote that actually applied directly to this, and that's actually harder, because that means you had to understand it well enough and understand the quote from the past well enough, or whoever the quote came from, to then be able to find the connection and correlate it. This guy's, I like him. It's too bad he doesn't have a picture, he doesn't have a real YouTube channel, but it pretty good. Everything is controversial when one regularly denies reality. Yeah, so some of these people are just stupid. Yeah, I mean, and it is what it is. But I will obviously catch you guys later. And who knows? We're going to go deeper with this. Again, I have my own data and my own research done years ago, financially. All kinds of different number-based points and data-based points that have nothing to do with color, skin, sex, all that. And I thought I did a pretty good... I never posted any of it out of fear, right? Same thing that he said, is out of fear of being ostracized, alienated, threatened. As he said, he had a police detail for weeks because he was death threats were being sent his way. So I think it's time. I think it's time that, especially now with the election coming up, one of the more controversial years, I think it's just time to start unloading my bullshit, my beliefs, and we'll see where it goes, right? And hopefully I don't end up with death threats. Hopefully I don't end up with any severe issues. We'll see how it goes. If you enjoyed what you heard today, or learned something, or just like me, because I think that's something that some of my supporters kind of struggle with. They're like, I'm there for the information. Well, then I would argue you're here transactionally, and you're not really my fan or supporter. But if you're here from me, please like, comment, and subscribe. And also, if you just enjoyed it, like, comment, and subscribe. And if you have a different perspective, please comment, because I would actually love to hear what you have to say about this man. And I'll catch you guys next one.